The New Jersey Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Belvidere Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted with the Star Ledger and Express Times and submitted to the town clerk of the town of Belvidere on January 9th, 2020. Due to COVID-19, masks will be required at this meeting when proper social distancing cannot be maintained. Board members will be able to participate in the meeting virtually via conference call, and the meeting will be live streamed for members of the public that do not wish to attend in person. Public not in attendance can email comments to be read during public participation to rtjalma@belvideresd.org. Public comment on agenda items needs to be received by 7 p.m. and have public participation number 1 in the subject line. Public comment that is not related to agenda items needs to be received by 7:20 p.m. and have public participation number 2 in the subject line of the email. We need to, first and a second, for a resolution pursuant to bylaw 9310 to suspend certain meeting procedures as described in the notice of meeting, specifically to authorize board members to participate in the meeting virtually via conference call if desired. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Okay. Time for the flag salute. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Shelley, you can do roll call.
Mr. Ty? Mrs. Weidlich? Oh, I don't have a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Weidlich?
Yes.
That's why she can't hear you.
That's why she's ignoring it.
Mrs. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Cosentino?
Here.
Mrs. Pell?
Here.
Mrs. Steffen?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Brian, you... Okay.
Dr. Zuppeth? Here. Mr. Blum? Here. Mr. White? Here. Mr. LeBar? Here. And Mrs. Williams? Here.
Okay. Shell, do you have any public participation?
Not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda. Does anybody in the public have anything?
Good evening. How are you guys doing?
You want to just state your name and that for anybody who may not know?
Oh, sure. I'm Laura Kennedy. I wanted to thank you guys again for taking the time on October 28th to interview me for the open board seat. And I wanted to give you a heartfelt congratulations. I hope and wish you the best of luck and that your voice is heard. My parents instilled a moral compass and code of ethics in my brothers and I.
Laura, just 1 second.
Sure.
I can't hear you.
We can't hear either.
Can I take this off?
Yes.
Is the mic on? Just tap the mic. Is the mic on?
Unplug it. Thank you. Let's try again. We're sorry. We couldn't hear you and we wanted to hear you.
Start from the top? Okay. Thank you. That was the main thing. My parents instilled a moral compass and code of ethics in my brother and I. They taught us that character is everything, and more importantly, that when you do something behind the scenes, it speaks more volumes than who you are than out in the public. These teachings have definitely gotten me in some trouble over my years, because where some people like to sweep things underneath the rug, I stand up for what's right, not for what's easy. It's not political, it's not sour grapes, it's just the rule follower in me. I've watched this school district for years, and the easy route has always been taken, and favorites being chosen. When I first moved here, I found that really hard to believe. That it was hard to believe that a district has been known as the good old boys club for as long as anybody could remember. It's disheartening, to say the least. In any case, the taxpayers deserve to know who they have handed the reins over to, and if procedures were followed in finding a replacement for Ms. Bacchino's seat. And I highly doubt that any of these questions are going to be answered here tonight, but if you never ask, the answer will always be no. So, my first question, did any of the seating board members actively seek out another candidate for the open board seat? Were letters of intent and resumes received by the advertised deadline of October 2nd, 2020 by 3 p.m.? Was a special extension granted without the public knowledge? I'm curious that if another board seat should open up, that the set of rules, what rules will you be engaging in? In fact, I believe that's actually one of the agenda items this evening, so I'll be interested to see how that plays out. We all know where there's smoke, there's fire. Over the years, you have given me a justifiable impression of how this all works. It makes one question what other unsavory events have gone on here. Has this happened on a larger scale, maybe in a position of more value? As you can imagine, the track record of previous supposed ethics violations doesn't match and must with the trust system that you guys have here. I am genuinely concerned over the quality of education that is being administered and the core values that this district holds. On tonight's agenda, you're taking steps to put clear and cut policies into place. Ones that were talked about during the November 9th special session with Kathy from the New Jersey school boards. However, in watching it, it only confirmed some of my longtime concerns. One area Kathy questioned you on was how the board plans on bringing the community together as stakeholders. And although you all agreed with the liaisons being sent to other school groups like the PTO, there is a silent majority in this community that has been mocked, that has been shushed, and has felt that no matter what they say, it will never matter. And it doesn't matter if you go through the chain of command. So where do you guys go from here? How do you bring everyone together and on the same page? It'd be nice if I could turn the page. Admittedly, you guys are starting from ground zero, and I'm thrilled about that. And I know it probably scares the ever-loving crap out of you, but I'm excited that you get to start over. It gives a chance that this board and districts have a chance to change the notion of just being the good old boys club. You get to do what's right and not just what's easy. My suggestion, if you want real unity amongst the board and the community, is to have an independently authored survey of how the stakeholders rate the level of education provided by the district with the current tax dollars given and the area of concerns that they have. This, of course, has to be done without fear of retribution. You have one heck of a job in front of you. And I know that with several bright and enthusiastic board members that this school has great potential. It's gonna take time, but it's gonna be worth it. Thank you.
Any other public participation from the audience? Oh, I couldn't see you. You're hiding behind the post.
I'm Christy Weber, president of the B.E.A., and I just wanted to let you know that, and just to reiterate the fact that we have had a very successful opening. One of the reasons, some of the factors that have kind of gone into our opening of our schools and being in person is that, number one, our custodians have been working tirelessly to make sure that everything is sanitized. We have all those Odorox things that are in our classrooms and they get switched all around. And they've been working for numerous hours making sure that things are clean and sanitized, as well as the teachers and the students have been doing their part as well. We've had a consistent schedule that has made our entire staff work to their potential and keeping the children engaged and working as hard as they can. We also have been very fortunate that our students have been following our instructions for masks, social distancing, and sanitizing when necessary. So we are very fortunate as a district to be able to have kept our students in school for this long, and I think it's really a group effort and a team effort that has done that. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. Anybody else? Okay. So that will end public participation. I'm going to jump on now the public participation. We'll just say, I agree. It's definitely been a group effort. The administration, the teachers, everybody has done a phenomenal job in keeping this school open. So you can pass that along. And I think the whole board would agree with that statement. Okay, any correspondence?
No.
Superintendent's report.
We're going to start out with Ms. Koch. Ms. Koch is going to just talk a little bit about our Belvidere Food School District Pantry. Before she does, I would like to say If you can start up, because I'm going to talk about the food pantry, Ms. Koch, so you can jump up. Last year, I know for Christmas specifically, I remember the amount of food that was raised and collected throughout the school and throughout the district was beyond amazing. We walked in here one of the mornings when all the food was lined up, and it was actually awe-inspiring. I was really, really proud to be associated with that. So, with that said, Ms. Koch.
Can you guys see that?
I was just gonna say, can you,
Yeah.
if you turn it though, the audience can't see it, so I don't know what the answer is.
Can you see it now?
That's not too bad. Can you guys see it here?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Catherine.
So I say that we're working to make learning more equitable, and I'm going to explain that once we get going. Come on. Turn. First thing I want to give you is a couple of things to have a basis. Can you hear me?
No, I was just gonna say,
Okay.
can you talk into, yeah,
Is that better?
that's better.
Okay. So I'm a big nerd, and my son lives in Washington, D.C. Now my daughter does too. And we often go to the FDR Memorial there because he just was a really good guy. And there's a quote up there that I always love. It's, "The test of our progress is not whether we add to the abundance of those who have much. It's whether we provide enough for those who have too little." And I always want to paint it in my classroom somewhere or find a place to put it up, because it's kind of what we try to teach I teach family and consumer science. So, that it goes right along with that. So there's two types of poverty that we need to know about. You have your generational poverty that's inherited across generations. It only needs to be 2 generations. So it could be parents and then their grown children. That could be 2 generations of poverty. And then there's situational poverty, and a lot of times that's what we deal with in Belvidere and in Warren County. Situational poverty is a period where an individual falls below the poverty line for a certain time or because of a certain event. So it could be lack of resources, loss of a job, an accident, divorce, anything like that. And right now it's COVID-19, which happens to be a big thing. In Warren County, 100% poverty for a family of 4 is considered at $26,200. And they can a family that makes that can actually receive assistance up to 200% of that. So $52,400, a family of 4 can still receive public assistance, actually, because you can go 200 times the poverty level. So a single parent family, that wage earner must earn $13.10 an hour when the minimum wage in New Jersey is still $10. So just something to think about. So when you look at New Jersey poverty statistics, specifically in Warren County, there's this thing called asset limited, income constrained, employed. So ALICE is the acronym for that. And those are families that earn enough money to be considered above the federal poverty line, but they don't make enough money to live, really. They don't make enough money for childcare, to cover their bills or transportation or whatever. So it's important to keep in mind that from 2010 to 2016, the number of income-constrained households grew at a staggering 19%, which is pretty big. That's a pretty big thing for Warren County itself and New Jersey. And over the time period, the cost of living outpaced the rate of wage growth, 28% to 12%. So why is that important? Well, food insecurity in our children leads to a lot of things, and we as teachers see this on the regular. So when a child is hungry and they can't keep their eyes open in class because they're truly hungry, and I will tell you that 2 years, well, it's probably 3 years ago now, we had a student that had trained herself to eat only every 2 days. Because she had younger siblings at home and she wanted to conserve food for them. Her mother would not let them even hear a conversation of them getting free and reduced lunch. There was nothing, so some teachers were buying food and we would store it, and she could come in at lunchtime at least and make herself a lunch every day. So these are things that we see that not necessarily everybody knows about or that kids talk about, because Warren County and Belvidere is not a place that has that, right? It's kind of a weird thing. So anyway, so food insecurity leads to lower grades. tardiness, absences, obesity, low mental health, and low physical health. And those are all things that are proven, scientifically proven, research proven. So we were saying, like, what can we do about this? So every year for homecoming, we run some class competitions, and one of the big competitions that we do is a food drive. Each class, so freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, they compete for points. They get a point per pound of food that they bring in. And those points add up. It's pretty good. We usually do over a literal ton of food every year. During that week in my classroom, I always bring in Helene Meisner, who is the director of the Norwest Cap Food Bank. So that's the food bank for Warren, Hunterdon, and Sussex counties. She comes in and she speaks about statistics, and she explains to our students how the food bank can get food at bigger levels, and then food pantries can come in and buy. I think $1 gives you 14 pounds of food. It's kind of a really interesting thing. And I had worked with Helene before, so she said to me, why don't you open a pantry in the school building? Other schools have it. Phillipsburg has one. Other schools around the area have them. And so we really thought about it, and I talked to other teachers and administration, and we just kind of said, okay, we're going to do it. So anyway, after all the paperwork, we got approved through Norwest Cap to run an actual food pantry. So we can, if we need to, purchase from Norwest Cap food at $1 is 14 pounds. So they have a cut list. If we really need stuff, depending on what they have in stock, we can get it. I made a big trade with them today, actually, for rice, because during homecoming this year, kids thought it was great to buy 20-pound bags of rice. But you can't give that to an average family. They're going to be eating rice for the next 5 years. So I traded them for 1-pound bags of rice, and they took my 20-pound bags. Which is kind of neat. So our first big bulk distribution was last year at Christmas time that Mr. Kruba was speaking about. So you can see in the pictures there, we have tons of food. Plus we had all kinds of personal items, so toothpaste, toothbrushes, deodorant, all kinds of things. The generosity of our community is amazing. It is so amazing that I can't even, it takes your breath away sometimes. And actually last December, I was pretty slick and made a shopping list at Mr. Kruba's local Sam's Club, and he was able to go pick some up, some food. So pretty funny. Anyway, so then in the spring we did a toiletry drive that was toiletry specific. We distributed that not just to Belvidere. Anything that we do, we try to share out with the other schools if we have enough. So we gave toiletries to Harmony School. We shared them with the Belvidere Food Pantry. Actually, they came and picked some up. Our school nurses came in and got to pick. Actually, they know students that need specific things, so we did that, and that's really cool. We didn't realize that toilet paper was going to be such a big thing at that time. But then, so throughout the year then, when students come in and we know that a student doesn't have food, a teacher will send them down and we'll let them go shopping in the food pantry. They do it quietly, and we help them out to their car or to whatever they need to get their things home, and it's very quiet, and they know they can come and get it. And then you have teachers that also know what kids like, so then they'll come in and be like, I bought this for so-and-so, can you like keep it aside? And it's really just, the amount of generosity is incredible. So when we were going out for quarantine, I asked, could we give out food? And so my students packed 99 bags of food that day. We were fortunate that my daughter was here, and she does a lot of work with food pantries in the Pennsylvania area, so she was really good at explaining to them how you have to pack bags with intent for people to not take away their dignity. So if you have 2 cans of tuna fish, try and match the brand. And there's some very specific things, because it's not easy to take food from people. So anyway, we packed 99 bags, 33 went to Harmony, and 66 bags stayed in district and were passed out with students when they came to pick up lunch. So pretty good, and our school nurses did that. Then we were full on in COVID, and we said, we're out of food, what are we gonna do? So we set up some drive-by food drives, pushed them out through Facebook, through Instagram, things like that, and we stood outside at nighttime, and the people were just, I couldn't even believe what we were getting. People were just pulling up in their cars and handing us food out or opening their trunks, and we were taking the food in, and just a really incredible thing. This is just pictures of just tons and tons and tons of food. We would do it on a Thursday evening, and then it would sit till Monday morning because obviously we couldn't wipe down all of that food. We just didn't have the people to do it. And then by Monday morning, we can start to pack and assemble. So there's different people that volunteered, plus we had the nurses here, and Matt Hoyt, and I made my kids come in, and just a really, really good thing. Everything was set up, and we taught them how to pack. And then we started delivering to other schools. So I reached out to Harmony, Hope, White Township to see what everybody needs. The only school that didn't take anything was Hope. They said they were in good shape, but we brought stuff to Harmony, we brought stuff to White Township, and just really cool. And then ShopRite got involved and gave us all the reusable bags. Somebody just dropped them off, reusable bags in cases of apples, and then we had somebody drop off potatoes and oranges, so we were able to give fresh food as well, which is really something cool. And now here we are at Thanksgiving this year, and combined food drives between our homecoming food drive and the elementary school builders club. We are set to feed multiple families this Thanksgiving. On Monday, actually, they're going to come and do their pickups. So I don't know what Christmas is going to look like this year. Last year for Christmas, they did their big holiday shopping at nighttime, and then it was like we set up a grocery store pretty much. People could come in, I gave them a little cart, and they would go through and pick up their stuff, and then the firemen were here, they helped them bring it to their cars. So hopefully we'll be able to do some kind of food drive, even if we do a nighttime drive-by, to be able to get some food out to our families. But I just thought it was really important for the board to realize the big group effort that is made to, really help everybody out. It's kind of a neat thing. So our staff really works for this. They give donations namelessly. They don't want anyone to know. ShopRite has paired with us, the George family, our administration, our West Cap, our community. It's just such a really good thing. And Jess McKinney and Christy, they came for our food drives, and Mr. Barrick and Mr. Hoyt, and Donna Golda and Sue March, and then all of our kids. Like, they get it's so neat to watch them learn about what they can do to help other people, and when they're sorting food and when they're unpacking food, and it's just a really good life lesson to learn to give back. So anyway, that's it.
Wow. Thanks, Deb. That was great. Thanks. I didn't realize the extent of what you guys were doing.
Yeah, and I gave you a paper. Think about like foods that people typically donate. A lot of times people get that and they're like, what do we do with it? So I thought it was really important that we have some kind of thing to tell them how to put foods together. Yeah. So when we teach the kids how to pack food, we have them think of packing in meals. So that's just some samples of what they can do with different foods.
That's great.
So,
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody who's involved. Christy, everybody. Jess?
Thank you.
Great job.
Okay.
We're still on superintendent's report.
We're still on superintendent's report, so, and I have a few things. I just want to take a couple minutes and talk a little bit about the communications that we've been having and that went out within the community today about the yellow phase versus the orange phase and the potential for remote learning. Let me just make sure everybody understands that what was sent out is specific if we're in the orange phase, that we're going to consider going all remote. If I can kind of just put it into perspective, we talked about this at a couple different committees, but when we're in the orange phase, and if we get there and the numbers do indicate that we're probably on the verge of that, the restrictions that we have to follow become a lot more severe. So these people have not been right, but I'll use Ms. Weber because I think her and I had this conversation yesterday, so she knows I'm going to do that. So if Ms. Weber shows 2 or more symptoms or decides to travel, I know Ms. Weber, she loves to go to nice places like Hawaii and California and places like that. But anyway, any kid that was in her class that came in contact with her, regardless of whether you're wearing a mask, regardless of whether they were 6 feet apart, has to quarantine until Ms. Weber produces a negative test. Okay, so you start doing the math on that, you really can't get a test for a few days. By the time you get the results, the kids are missing. There are certain teachers that we kind of can pinpoint that would knock out big portions of the school. So it becomes a challenge. The second piece of that is the challenge also becomes we are doing the contact tracing now because the health department for the county is so inundated right now with cases too. So in talking with Mr. Thompson and Mr. Newman, and I think, you know, from the representatives from the other boards, you guys know that we decided as a cluster to look at this in phases. We will be getting our next report probably later in the afternoon tomorrow. We do have a county meeting on Friday where we'll know if we're still in the yellow or we're moving into the orange. The one thing that I have, and I've said this to a few folks, I've struggled with this quite a bit. It's been a difficult decision to make, and a lot of it has to do with the numbers, but I am also concerned how quickly things can get out of hand. I speak with the superintendent from Phillipsburg quite a bit, and they're the great example of going from 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds. So in discussing this with Mr. Thompson and Mr. Newman at length, we think that's a good starting point, at least for the short term, that we would, if we're still in yellow on Friday, which I hope we are, all systems will go next week. And then we're going to almost be week to week, where every Friday we're going to be really taking a good look at everything. At this point, that's as far as we're going to commit. We're not going to commit to taking 2 weeks off after the Thanksgiving break or anything like that, because if we're not in orange, we're going to be students in at that point. We're also looking at, once we get, if we do have to shut for a couple of weeks, we would still like to try to be open at some point during December and not have a lengthy shutdown. So we'll kind of keep everybody up to date on that. We are looking for guidance from the health department, which we're expecting on Friday, as to whether or not we can allow specific students in, i.e. that have specific IEP needs that we need to meet, that we know that will be done better in person than virtually. So we'll update everybody on that. And as I wrote to the staff today, I strongly encourage all of the staff to be in here every day. We do know that there's some exceptions that are going to likely need to be made due to childcare issues and things like that, but we strongly encourage everybody to be here. We think the virtual learning will go better with everybody in person. So that's a somewhat long-winded explanation of the emails that have gone back and forth. I do appreciate some of the response I've gotten from the board members. There's been some really good ideas worth discussing in the quick future here, but I do appreciate that. So I'll finish my report and then we can circle back to that if we'd like. At this time of the year, we always like to put a little cap on the fall sports season, which has been certainly an interesting one this year, trying to work through COVID. I do commend Mr. Bartow and the plan he put in place and the plan that was enforced on a daily basis. And most of the times that we were canceled this year, it was not because of our students, it was because of interactions with other schools. The most notable example is tomorrow night's football game with North Warren is canceled because North Warren has to quarantine. Mr. Bartow was able to get a game with High Point on Friday night in a quick turnaround, so I thank him for that. But overall, I think the sports season went very well. Unfortunately, we are just down to field hockey now in the playoffs. The girls soccer team suffered a defeat this afternoon, sad to report, and the boys yesterday. Cross country's been finished for a couple of weeks now. They had an outstanding season as well. So kudos to the coaches and the students who really made this season run. I think the kids and the coaches did an excellent job of making sure we were able to compete day in and day out. I recommend, and I've said this just in finance, that we table the winter sports coaches for now. We are waiting for guidance on Friday that will come out from the governor. I don't expect us to be starting winter sports anytime before January 15th at this point. So I think that makes sense. The last thing I do want to mention, of all of the things that we did not get to do over the last 7 or 8 months because of COVID, one of the things that I personally missed the most was our Veterans Day Assembly, which we've done all 10 years prior to this year that I've been part of the district, and I always felt that it was one of the better programs we put together, certainly in the high school, and for our students to get an opportunity to just spend some time with some veterans that we've had, veterans that were as old as their mid-90s who had fought back in World War II to current serving members of the armed forces. And I always thought that was a great thing that we did, and it was always great to see the kids interacting. Unfortunately, because of COVID and the restrictions, we really couldn't put that off. They did put a nice video together, so I do appreciate that. But I do want to take a second and comment on that. We always have a great presentation, so thanks to our veterans. I know it's a couple weeks later, and we're sorry we didn't get to do that this year. That's my lengthy report tonight.
Any questions or comments for Chris?
Chris, did you have a chance to look into the weight room?
Oh, I did. I have a response for you. I'll send it up tomorrow. Mr. Bartow did do that. Yes, we did.
Anything else for Chris? Okay, we'll move on to our agenda items. We have policy items 1 through 13. Just a side note, 1 through 11 are second reading, and 12 and 13 are first reading. Can I get a motion and a second for agenda items 1 through 13?
Motion?
Second? Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I guess we do all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Let's see, I need a motion and a second for personnel items 14 through 20, it looks like. But we're tabling 18, 19, and 20, right? 18, 19, and 20. So it's 14 through 17. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Questions, comments,
You want to
concerns?
just mention the notes that you sent today?
I did. I apologize. I did not get the personnel meeting minutes out until late this afternoon, and I sent them to Chris and Shelley, who will, if you didn't get them out already, they will get them out to you tomorrow. The biggest thing we discussed at Personnel Committee, and let me just do this now while I'm thinking about it, was the coaches, but now they're tabled, so it's kind of a moot point anyway. But the Personnel Committee did go over the things that are on here, and the minutes will come out. There was nothing spectacular. And again, I apologize. That was totally life has just been crazy for me in the last week and a half, and it just wasn't enough time for me to get them out. I will not have that happen again. So, any questions or comments, feel free. I will answer as best I can for the committee. No questions, comments? Okay, Shell, roll call.
Mrs. Duckworth,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Mrs. Cosentino,
Yes.
Mrs. Powell. Yes. Mrs. Steffen,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Dr. Zuppert,
Yes.
Mr. Blum,
Yes.
Mr. White, Mr. LeBar,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Okay, can I get a motion and a second on education items 21 through 23?
Can I ask about number 22?
Hang on, I need a motion and a second
sorry.
first. That's okay, hold that thought.
Motion. Second.
Okay, now, go ahead.
I just asked about number 22. Is that in place of DC because of the pandemic? Is that why we moved?
Yes,
Is that gonna
Yeah.
be an overnight? I guess it is, right?
it is, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we're
Wha-
concerned about of being in June and not sure what the pandemic is going to be and sending our students to a major metropolitan area. I personally have major concerns about that.
Right.
So that was sort of something else we could do that's relatively local, though the kids would be all outside with the activities except for the overnight part of it. We thought it was a good trade-off.
I agree. If worse comes to worse, and at the last minute, this things get canceled for COVID, I'm assuming we're gonna make sure that we can get our money back, because we still have money hanging out there from some students on other stuff.
Yes.
Okay,
I have a question on 21.
go ahead.
Are we in our second year of this?
We are 2.5. So we started preschool January, 2 years. So it would almost be 3 years ago, right, Chris? Yeah. So we've had this will be our second full year, and we had the 1.5 a year.
So we're coming up on the 3-year grant.
To our knowledge, we in fact, I think, I don't know if you want to comment, Chris, we're actually going to be approved for more money because we can expand to a third class.
If we project out to 2023, we should start funding.
To our knowledge, it's going to be funded beyond that initial 3-year
They
thought.
give us a universe number, and it's like you double your first grade enrollment. Kindergarten is big for next year, if we're projecting out. So we started with 1, expanded to 2, and possibly expanded to 3. Because we're Catholic. I mean, I'm just going to, everything's based off of projected enrollment. You don't know. Yes. So 22, 23, I would project.
So 22 to 23, you think the grant will cover that through?
Correct.
Because once the grant ends, then it becomes how we're going to pay for it.
Right.
They just came out with another cohort that starts, I think any day now, so we're still rolling out more cohorts,
Mhm.
we do not have it, so it does not would like to fund.
I can tell you in the conversations about preschool, that idea of them cutting the funding has, I don't ever, all the stuff we hear, that's never on the table. So, now I shouldn't say never. At this point, it's not on the table. There's always an effort.
Yeah, there's always the next year. Any other questions on agenda items 21 through 23? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Can I get a motion and a second for business items 24 through 26? Second, somebody?
Second.
Okay. Questions, concerns on 24 through 26? Nothing? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. So let's go to continuing business. I have something, Kathy got back to me yesterday with some dates that she has availability for in December, January, and February for some of the things we wanted to do. So what I'm going to do is I'll send an email out to the board tomorrow with her available dates. Now, some of her dates actually fall on board meetings nights, so maybe we can talk about, I don't know that we want to start at 7 o'clock with a real board meeting and then go into one of her things, but maybe we could even talk about a 6 o'clock start, maybe do a strategic planning or, basic something or other from 6 to 7 with her, and then do our board meeting at 7. But I'll send this out with a couple of items that we wanted her to go over with us. And then if you guys can get back to me fairly quickly, only because her dates fill up quickly. So we could wind up picking something that by the time I get back to her now, it's gone again. All right? So even if you could come back with 2 dates that work, I'll get that. So I'll get that out to everybody tomorrow. That's all I have for continuing business. I will again apologize. I'm a little out of sorts because it's just been a hellish week for me. So is there anything else that's on continuing business that we should be talking about that I don't see in my notes offhand?
Just want to bring up, Mrs. Pell asked during finance about our conversation about regionalization.
Yes.
So I did say, obviously, with everything that's been going on has not been a priority, and we've had some pushback a little bit on that, but I will reach out to the other 2 superintendents to try to see if we can have another follow-up meeting and kind of get a sense, especially as we head into the budgeting season. So I will follow up on that. I didn't want to, I figured I would say that out so that everybody knew.
Yeah, what was our last dollar amount on that? Was it
It's around 40 for the
40,000
study.
for the regionalization study? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for continuing business?
I did. We actually just had a finance meeting tonight, and we had a pretty lengthy discussion on the potential of a multi-use sports field. Chris and I had a meeting last week with the architects, and they're working on a new estimate for us, so we should have that pretty soon. We're also working on the long-range facility plan update. The committee had a pretty good discussion tonight, but I think we want to plan to have a full board discussion on it over the next weeks, months, or so.
Yeah, she needs to get the numbers together, Colleen, so we know what we're talking about.
What direction we want to go, but we're definitely have it on the table and with good discussion.
Yeah, and I'm sure when Brian does the minutes for the finance committee, what we discussed will be in there, and then Shelley can follow up with dollars, and then it needs to be a full board discussion at that point. Go ahead, you had something? I do that all the time. Okay, anybody else have anything for continuing business? Okay, how about new business? No? Okay, I don't think I have anything for new business either. Okay, we do have to go to executive session in a minute. What? Go ahead.
Regionalization, we were pretty good on that before COVID though, right? We were getting really close.
We had a meeting.
Is the pushback because they don't want to regionalize or because of the circumstances?
I think it's a little more the circumstances,
Okay.
just kind of where we're at and sort of fell off the priority list. I know the last meeting we had was while we were
They didn't come away with a
out.
warm fuzzy. I'm going to be honest with you. They did not come away with a warm fuzzy
Yeah.
from that meeting, that we were going to regionalize. But it was one meeting, and we were going to realign. Yes, well, that's what they're
That's
saying
what we're
we'll
trying
get
to-
together.
We had the meeting, the last meeting was right before we started working on our reopening plan, and
Yeah,
once that hit, that sort of pushed everything right out the window.
yeah.
But I will follow up on that.
Yeah, let's get have another discussion. That will, we'll see what happens.
And then I just have a question about, I know your communication, Friday morning then, you'll let people know either way if we're still in yellow or
Yes,
we're in orange,
yeah.
what's going to happen?
In fact, if I can do that tomorrow afternoon, I'd like to. There's been discussion, we may get that information tomorrow afternoon from the county office. Friday morning's probably a safer bet, but if it's 6:30 tomorrow night and I get it, then I'll get it out as quick as I can.
Okay, anybody else? So we're going to go in and talk about
Public
negotiations.
participation.
Huh?
Second
I
public-
don't, why, hold your horses.
All right, well,
I'm
you
just
wanna
telling
know-
them what we're doing before
I don't want
we
you
do
to
it.
skip it.
I didn't. I wasn't gonna. So we're gonna go into executive session after public participation to discuss negotiations. So anybody who's conflicted can feel free to leave. Okay? And there will be no action taken when we do that. So, all right. So let's do our last public participation since there'll be no action. So anybody in the public who would like to leave can leave as well. So is there anybody in the audience who has anything they'd like to say? Does that mean you do, Joe?
That would be me, thank you. Good evening. I think for the most part, everybody knows me. I'm Joe Kennedy. I'm here as Joe Kennedy, not the mayor of the town of Belvidere. I now have a grandson in the school district, Evan Connor, so I wanted to address some concerns and speak to the public here. Madam President, to you specifically, because that's the protocol to go through you, not directly to the school board members. So I will address everything to you directly,
Okay.
if you don't mind. And please all listen in. Thank you.
Joe, it's hard to hear you though. Can you? I don't
Okay,
think you
sorry
raise the
about that.
mic.
Is that a little bit
That's
better?
Thank you.
I, like my daughter-in-law, sometimes get a little bit shaky, believe it or not. And I do want to say, I do apologize for not being here on time when you did speak, but I did listen to you on the way in. I think she did a great job. First of all, I want to thank the school board, as I always do, for all your hard work and everything you do. I truly appreciate it, including the staff. We may not always agree all the time, but that's okay. That's what makes things better. I did go take the time over the last week to 2 weeks to go through all of your bylaws, policies, procedures, whatnot. I do want to thank the school administration and Loretta for getting me a copy of all the second reading information that I requested. Madam President, I thank you for the understanding of why the first reading information could not be given out, because it's no different than the Belvidere Town Council. So I do understand that. I do agree with quite a bit of what my daughter-in-law said. I think there's a lot of work that has to be done. I have had the opportunity to sit in at your special meeting on ethics, and I think that's a great start again. I think there's much work to be done as to what I looked at. Although I do not have all the information on the first reading on vacancies, I can only guess what it's in relationship to based on the actions in which the school board took in reference to filling the last vacancy, which I'm not very pleased with. That being said, the action has been taken. I accept it, and we'll move forward from that. I will say, quite frankly, as I said to my daughter-in-law again, your new board member, Andy White, I've had the opportunity to meet him. I've known him before. He will do an absolute spectacular job for you here on the school board. So congratulations, Andy. Congratulations to all the new board members that won re-election. I think it's great. I think there's going to be some good things coming out in the up and coming years. As I said, I agree with my daughter-in-law. I think there's some changes to be made. I think there's some seats that need to be changed to bring us to this change, because the first question that comes to mind, in my opinion, is when you look at scoring and finances and you see a number of board members that have been here for more than a decade or two, and we're still suffering through some of these things that we're dealing with right now. You first got to ask yourself the question as a board, why is this continuing to happen year after year? Why aren't we making the improvements that need to be made? That being said, you've got my full support, as you always have. I'm not very happy with the things, the way they fell out. I'll be dealing with that personally, along with my daughter-in-law, and the actions that I feel that should be taken. But we are going to support you, both my daughter-in-law and I. We always take the high road. There's an election coming up next year. I will give her support and help her in any way I can. That being said, we don't have the privilege to be in executive session when you discuss the appointment of the vacancy. In contradiction to Title 18A 12, it perfectly clearly says that this is discussion that should be happening out in the open and publicly. That did not happen.
So that is one of my disappointments, just so you guys know this going in. The second thing is, I've never dealt with a situation where an employee questions the boss. If you remember clearly, a couple years ago, we had a similar situation with a young lady that was elected to the school board to represent the town of Belvidere, and she was told just that. As an employee, you can't supervise your boss. I get that. I understand that. But fast forward, here we did the same thing, okay? You know, during the process, okay, an employee should never be interviewing a boss and asking questions. Why do I know that? Very simply, I talked to my daughter-in-law, you know. So Mr. Karuba, ethically, I felt it was improper for you to be in that meeting, and this is nothing personal. It's just that I don't believe you should have a right to ask a candidate as to what they want to do, when they don't have the privilege of knowing what it is that the school board as a whole expects to be done. So I'm curious to see how that vacancy changed. You will always get my support. Again, differences doesn't mean that we dislike an individual. Differences simply means that we improve ourselves and get better. So I understand that greatly. Madam President, you asked me a question before the meeting last time. You asked if I could potentially make a decision on a rumor that you heard in the town. Now, this is going to hurt some people here, for sure, and some people in the town of Belvidere. But it's very difficult, and now I'm speaking as the mayor, folks. It's very difficult to make a hard decision when you're faced with this. My expectations was to run for the school board and serve the school board well. In the last 2 weeks to a month, some things have arisen in the town of Belvidere, and I'll say it openly, that I'm more involved with now the potential purchase of BASF and Georgia Pacific out in your area, Madam President. I'm more focused on that right now, and I have to make sure that I maximize the best decision for the town of Belvidere. So with that, I will not be accepting the school board seat, as you requested me to give you the answer on. I will further say, it breaks my heart both for the people and the school board members here that wanted me to run for specific reasons. Let me tell the school board members and my friends and everybody here, although I will not take this seat, I will be at every meeting, I will watch every video, and I will scrutinize and watch everything that goes on, not in a negative manner, but just simply to offer support and a suggestion. And I want people to take it as a support and a suggestion, not as a negative or not as something bad, because I am out there much more in the public eye, talking to much more people, hearing about the good old boys club and the off-balance administration versus teacher staff and so many other things. I think we have a qualified board that's going to address these issues moving forward. Now, being that you were in executive session and we do not have a roll call from the board, which I think would have been proper, rather than coming out and simply asking in all favor on who you were supporting, all I can assume is there's only one person in this room that I can guarantee that probably would have abstained and not made a comment on it, and that is Mr. Blum. I've known Mr. Blum for years, more than he knows that I've known him. And Mr. Blum is a guy of integrity, and he is a strong guy, and we may not all get along with him. My recommendations, and I talked to my daughter-in-law about this, we'll look in next spring to run for a proper seat. I spoke to Madam President, your concern is negotiation. My recommendation is you're going to move as quickly as possible to put Mr. Blum back where he needs to be so you can achieve that comp. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Any other public participation? Michelle, do you have any emails?
Can you hear me?
You want to give her the mic? Sure. You might have to come over, Michelle.
Is that better? Yes?
Not yet.
No?
Not yet.
You want?
Talk into it. It's a microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, board members. My name is Laura Foster Wasilewski, and I'm the parent of 3 Belvidere students, one in 6th grade, one in kindergarten, and one in pre-K. I would like to start off by saying that I think the Belvidere School District has done a phenomenal job of implementing the reentry plan and has excelled at keeping our school community safe. Everyone has come together to keep one another safe, and it has been executed excellently. Our child in kindergarten has special needs and receives several services through the school district, including speech therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. Last time the district switched to all remote learning, our special needs child went months without her therapies. Our daughter has a diagnosis of mixed CP and suffered the most from missing in-person physical therapy. Our child is not able to learn virtually due to her special needs. To be fair, 6-year-olds are certainly not great candidates for virtual learning in the first place. And you add autism spectrum disorder and CP to that equation, and remote learning becomes simply not feasible. It is even harder to service her therapeutic needs virtually. Since the district has had since the spring to come together and brainstorm contingency plans, I would like to know if a contingency plan has been developed for our special education children and for those general education students who receive therapies. We know that we are not alone in this boat, and other districts have come up with ways to keep families and teachers and therapists safe while still allowing for some in-person therapeutics. And I would like to know if the Belvidere School District has been actively attempting to come up with a plan for our special education students. These children are our most vulnerable and have already suffered extensively from this disruption in their education and in their therapies. I believe that continuing their therapeutics should be considered a priority. Thank you, Gary and Laura Wasilewski.
Anything else, Shel? Okay, so I'm going to end I'm going to end public participation and ask for a motion and a second to go into executive session. And any board members who are conflicted, feel free to leave, and you do not need to return. All right, so can I get a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss negotiations? The matters discussed will be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality no longer exists. Second, somebody? Second. Okay. We're going to go into executive session. We're going to be, I don't know how long we're going to be. I can't even guess. I hope not, but I'm not going to say 10 minutes. Depends on you. Okay, can I have a motion and a second to adjourn? Motion. Second. Done. Go home.